On the news, Orban meets Xi to mediate Russia-Ukraine conflict. Australia names envoy to fight anti-Semitism. Trump expects Biden to remain in presidential race. Zelensky criticizes Modi-Putin meeting amid hospital raid. And in Gaza-Israel war, thousands displaced by new IDF evacuation orders. Talking political matters, Xi Jinping, Chinese president, has urged world powers to assist Russia and Ukraine continue direct dialogues as he held talks with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who was in Beijing on a visit the European leader has branded as a peace mission. Xi and Orban's meeting in the Chinese capital on Tuesday came after the Hungarian leader made a light visit to Russia and Ukraine last week to celebrate prospects for a peaceful settlement in the conflict now in its third year. Hungary assumed the rotating presidency of the European Union this month, and Orban has since embarked on a peace mission, which, however, lacks the endorsement of other European nations. Orban is broadly seen as having the warmest ties with Xi and Putin among European leaders. His visit to Moscow last week drew condemnation from Ukraine and EU officials who insisted Orban was not acting on behalf of the whole European bloc. The rebuke failed to deter Orban from extending a similar visit to Beijing, which he called Peace Mission 3.0, in a picture posted on X. While hosting Orban, Xi called on Russia and Ukraine to cease fire and on other major powers to establish an environment conducive to talks. Only when all major powers project positive energy rather than negative energy can a ceasefire occur, Xi said, according to report. For his part, Orban described China as a stabilizing force amid universal turbulence and praised its constructive and important peace initiatives. These include Chinese 6-point peace plan, which it issued with Brazil in May. China says it is neutral in the conflict, though in practice it backs Moscow through regular state visits, rising trade and joint military exercises. Russia said it appreciated Orban's efforts to clarify positions in resolving the crisis, while Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the Hungarian leader could not act as a mediator. Attacks, he said, could only be undertaken by major world powers. Zelensky said during a visit to Poland that are there many such countries around the world? Not many, he said. I believe the US and China are such countries, and the EU not one country, but the whole of European Union. Ukraine remains open to proposals from other countries on how to shape the path to peace, but they should align with the Ukrainian vision, in particular a 10-point peace plan, Zelensky added. Ukraine hopes to hold a second international summit to consider its proposal for peace later this year. China, which has close relations to Moscow, did not attend the first meeting in June. On Israel-Gaza war, Australia has appointed a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism amid fears that the war in Gaza is triggering community tensions. The Australian government said in a statement on Tuesday that Gillian Segal, a Jewish lawyer and business leader, will engage with Jewish Australians, the broader Australian public, religious discrimination experts, and the government on ways to address anti-Jewish sentiment. Segal will serve a 3-year term and report directly to Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Multicultural Affairs, Andrew Giles. Albanese said there is no place for violence or hatred in Australia, adding that his government will also soon announce a special envoy for fighting Islamophobia. In one of her first tasks in her new role, Segal will attend the World Jewish Congress in Argentina next week to discuss anti-Semitism with other envoys from around the world. On Tuesday, Segal cautioned that anti-Semitism has become normalized, citing data from Australia's peak Jewish body that showed a 700% increase in reported hate incidents in the months after Hamas's October 7th attacks on Israel and the start of Israel's war in Gaza. Australia has witnessed heated protests over the war in Gaza, and both the Jewish and Muslim communities have reported a piercing uptick in instances of hate. Like other countries, over 38,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since the beginning of the war, according to Gaza's Ministry of Health. According to Israeli authorities, more than 1,130 people were killed in Hamas's October 7th attacks. The Executive Council of Australian Jewry, which Segal led until last year, hailed the appointment of the new envoy to carry out vital work for the betterment of Australian society. However, the Jewish Council of Australia, which has strongly criticized Israel's actions in Gaza, stated concern about Segal's track record of lobbying for Israel, opposing voices that support Palestinian human rights and painting all Jews as supportive of Israel's actions. By appointing a pro-war voice to this position, the government risks breeding division, increasing Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian racism, and ultimately making Jews less safe, the council said in a statement. Shifting away now, on the US 2024 election, Donald Trump has said he does not expect Joe Biden to end his bid to be re-elected president of the United States, signifying he will stay in the race because of his ego. In an interview on Monday night, the Republican candidate said Biden might very well stay in the race despite rising pressure to drop out due to worries over his physical and mental fitness. Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee, said the Democratic Party could do little to force Biden out of the race, apart from invoking a constitutional provision that lets the vice president and cabinet members to declare that the president is unable to discharge his duties. The ex-president said he expects Vice President Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee if Biden does choose to step aside. Trump's comments came after Biden on Monday again slammed down calls for him to quit following his disastrous debate performance last month, maintaining in a letter to congressional Democrats that he is committed to running this race to the end and to beating Donald Trump. 6 elected Democrats have so far publicly called on Biden to step aside since the debate, during which Biden stumbled over his words and appeared to lose his train of thought. A number of other Democratic lawmakers have publicly raised fears about Biden's ability to beat Trump given his age and condition. Biden has nonetheless so far managed to keep most of the Democratic top brass on side, with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on Monday repeating their support for the president. Trump also addressed last month's debate for the first time, calling it a strange evening in his interview. Back to war, Ukraine-Russia war on Monday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned his Indian counterpart's visit to Moscow as a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts on the same day that a Russian missile smashed into a children's hospital in Kyiv. Narendra Modi, Indian Prime Minister, met Russian President Vladimir Putin at his residence in Novo-Ogarevo outside Moscow on Monday, while 900 kilometers away, 60 miles Russian missiles rained down on Ukrainian cities in a morning rush hour assault that killed at least 37 people and wounded 170 others. Modi's two-day trip marks his first visit to Russia since Putin started his full-scale invasion in Ukraine closely 2.5 years ago, with images and video Monday showing the two leaders hugging, chatting over tea, riding an electric vehicle, and watching a house show. It is a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts to see the leader of war's largest democracy hug the war's most bloody criminal in Moscow on such a day, Zelensky said in a post on Monday, referring to the deadly Russian attacks. The large-scale daylight bombardment hit the capital, Kyiv, and cities including Dnipro, Kryvyi, Sloviansk, and Kramatorsk, some of which are heavily populated areas far from the front lines. Ukraine's State of Emergency Service said on Tuesday that in Kyiv, 27 people were killed, including 4 children. 2 people were killed and at least 16 others were wounded in the strike on Kyiv's Okhmatite hospital. The facility is Ukraine's biggest children's medical center and has been crucial in the care of some of the sickest children from across the country. Videos from the scene showed volunteers working with police and security services to dig through the rubble as smoke billowed from the hospital. Search and rescue operations for people potentially stuck beneath the debris continued on Tuesday. Hospital staff said they tried to rush children to safety in the wake of the attack. 2 children had been in the operating theaters at the time of the blast, and both were relocated to the basement shelter once their procedures were completed, a senior nurse said, according to report. Another senior nurse said an operation on the 2-year-old was underway when the strike happened. United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk said the blast forced medical workers to treat sick children outside the facility. Patients were receiving treatment for cancer in hospital beds set up in parks and on streets, where medical workers had quickly established triage areas amongst chaos, dust and debris, he said in a statement. On Israel-Gaza war, tens of thousands of people in Gaza are on the move yet again as the Israeli military issues new evacuation orders for several areas in Gaza City. Over the past 10 days, the Israel Defense Forces IDF has issued instructions for hundreds of thousands of people in Khan Younis in the south, Shujaiya in central Gaza, and several neighborhoods of Gaza City to leave. According to the United Nations, the effect has been to add the total number of displaced people in Gaza from 1.7 million in May to an approximated 1.9 million now. About 9 out of 10 people in Gaza are now estimated to be internally displaced, many of them multiple times. Mass displacement has been predominantly driven by evacuation orders issued by the Israeli military, extensive destruction of both private and public infrastructure, restricted access to essential services, and the persistent fear of ongoing hostilities, according to the most recent assessment by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. It's unclear how many people in Gaza City have heeded the newest evacuation order. Numerous civilians are wary of leaving whatever shelter they have for an undefined journey to an even more uncertain fate, living on the streets or in the overcrowded, unsanitary tent villages to pop up with each evacuation order. The IDF has said the evacuation orders are essential so that civilians don't get caught up in its renewed operations in areas where Hamas is seeking to re-establish a presence. The IDF insists it goes to great lengths to avoid civilian casualties. Hamas has said the evacuation threatened to return negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage deal 2.0. More stories now on election matters. France thrown into uncertainty after Sunday's election. On Sunday night, joy, French voters had once again kept the far right out of power. On Monday morning, ambiguity hung Parliament's shaky alliances and the threat of turbulent years ahead. President Emmanuel Macron called France's snap parliamentary poll to clarify the political situation, but after the shock second-round results, the voters are more muddied than they have been in decades. While a rise in support for the left-wing New Popular Front NFP coalition foiled Marine Le Pen's far-right National Rally RN party, French politics is now more disordered than it was before the vote. After leading the first round of voting last Sunday, the RN was closer to the gates of power than ever before and was on the point of creating France's first far-right government since the collaborationist Vichy regime of World War II. But after a week of political bargaining, in which over 200 left-wing and centrist candidates withdrew from the second round in a bid to avoid splitting the vote, the NFP, a cluster of many parties from the extreme left to the more moderate, emerged with the most seats in the decisive second round. The NFP won 182 seats in the National Assembly, making it the biggest group in the 577-seat parliament. Macron's centrist Assemble Alliance, which trailed in a distant third in the first round, mounted a strong recovery to win 163 seats, and the RN and its allies, despite leading the first round, won 143 seats. Although the coalition has the most seats, it fell well short of the 289 seats needed for an absolute majority, meaning France now has a hung parliament. If this was a victory for anything, it was the cordon sanitaire, the principle that mainstream parties must unite to stop the extreme right from taking office. On climate crisis, Beryl cuts power to millions in Texas amid severe heat. Restoring power to millions of Texans slammed by the deadly and destructive storm Beryl could take days or even weeks, posturing a hazardous scenario for residents who will not have air conditioning as scorching heat settles over the state. On Monday, Beryl slammed into southern Texas as Category 1 hurricane, knocking out power to over 2.5 million homes and leaving at least 8 people dead in Texas and Louisiana. The storm, now a tropical depression, unleashed flooding rains and winds that transformed roads into rushing rivers, ripped through power lines and tossed trees onto homes, roads and cars. As it hurtles northeastward, it is bringing flooding and the threat of tornadoes across eastern Texas, western Louisiana and Arkansas, as difficult recovery and cleanup efforts are underway in southeast Texas, including the Houston area. Severe heat will bear down on the region Tuesday and Wednesday, forming hazardous conditions for those working outdoors or without adequate cooling. A heat advisory is in place on Tuesday for southeast Texas, where heat indices, a measure of how the body feels under both heat and humidity, will hit 105 degrees, and high temperatures in the 90s are forecast across the region. The National Weather Service in Houston said the lack of proper cooling combined with many people outdoors cleaning up after burial could produce dangerous heat condition. Heat is the deadliest form of dangerous weather in the U.S., killing more than twice as many people each year as hurricanes and tornadoes combined. But restoring power to hard-hit communities will be a multi-day undertaking, according to Thomas Gleason, the chairman of the Public Utility Commission of Texas. And in the coastal city of Galveston, city officials have estimated it could be as many as 2 weeks before electricity is restored. Texas utility CenterPoint Energy has borne the brunt of the outages, with loosely 2 million customers in the dark Monday night, according to poweroutage.us. Though the company had braced for Beryl's effect, it said the damage was more extreme than it had anticipated. The utility expects to restore power to 1 million customers by Wednesday night. In part 2, I'll bring you more stories, but after this break. Please don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now is Zuma Nigeria, and we begin with federal government holds food import duty, teams with states on farming. On Monday, the federal government declared a 150-day duty-free import window for food commodities as it stepped up efforts to tackle rising inflation, which had impoverished many Nigerians. The government also stated its decisions to collaborate with states to expand land cultivation across the country. Consequently, the government halted duties, tariffs and taxes for the importation of certain food commodities through land and sea borders. Among other things, the latest directive is expected to reduce demand for forex by food importers. In 2023, Nigerians spent $2.13 billion to import food items from foreign countries. The quarterly statistics of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, showed that the country exported large amounts of food from foreign countries despite being touted as the food basket of Africa. The high food imports bill is a concern for the government. The country has a huge agriculture sector, and there have been efforts to boost local production to reduce the dependence on food imports. However, factors such as inadequate infrastructure, insecurity and climate change have hindered progress in that sector. But the newest directive permitting free food imports, experts say, is a clear demonstration that the Nigerian government is yet to put the nation on the right path of eradicating hunger by 2030 as stipulated by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The government had earlier ruled out the importation of food as part of the strategies to tackle the high cost of foodstuffs and the economic hardship bedeviling the country. The Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Abubakar Kyari, speaking at the press conference held in Abuja, said 150 days of duty-free imports will be valid for commodities including maize, Husk brown rice, wheat, and cowpeas. The initiative, which is part of the Presidential Accelerated Stabilization and Advancement Plan, would also enable the federal government to import 250,000 metric tons of wheat, 250,000 metric tons of maize. It explained that the imported food commodities in the semi-processed states will aim supplies to the small-scale processors and millers across the country. Now, petrol hits 900 per litre in Lagos, others as queues returned at stations. A fresh round of petrol scarcity has hit Lagos State and other parts of the country, leading to extended queues at filling stations and a major spike in fuel prices, with some outlets selling at an alarming rate of 900 naira per litre. The Federal Capital Territory FCT Abuja and surrounding states were also hit by the worst supply crunch in recent times, leading to the long queues stretching kilometers and causing heavy gridlock in the seat of power. Several filling stations were shut in the Federal Capital Territory on Monday, while the few that had petrol sold as high as 900 naira per litre. There was also a boom in the black market as 10-litre container of petrol sold for as much as 12,000 naira. In Abuja, the queue stretched from the NNPC mega station on the Gwarimpa axis of the Zuba Kubwa Expressway to Cornell and Total filling stations directly opposite the headquarters of the National Oil Company in the city center, as well as Salva's filling station at the Dede end of the Zuba Kubwa Expressway. The story was the same in Niger and Nasarawa states. While the NNPC mega station still sold petrol for 617 naira per litre, but with queues over 1 kilometer long, roadside black marketers made brisk businesses. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) ascribed the development to interruptions in the movement of products caused by inclement weather conditions, including thunderstorms and lightning. In a statement signed by Chief Corporate Communications Officer of NNPCL, Olufemi Soneye, the National Oil Company said there had been a disruption of ship-to-ship transfer of petrol between mother vessels and daughter vessels resulting from a recent thunderstorm. The severe weather conditions, Soneye said, disrupted station supply logistics. NNPCL said petrol could not be loaded during rainstorms and lightning because of its flammability and in compliance with the Nigerian Meteorological Agency (NIMET) regulations. And finally, on the news on Rivers crisis, Wike's Kimmen backs Fubara amid Rivers crisis. Admitting the atmosphere of tension, the kinsman of the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Chief Wesam Wike, from Ikpere ethnic nationality of the state, had declared absolute support for the Rivers State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara. On Monday, speaking during a courtesy call on the governor, the President General of Agbakpo Ikpere Worldwide, Eze Barrister God's Power Onukwa, said as Ikpere people, they have had their turn governing the state and cannot sit by and watch an unknown person destroy the peace that the governor has ensured in the state, while praising the governor for many development projects being executed across the various local government areas, including those of Ikpere. Eze Onukwa pledged the unwavering support of the good people of Ikpere ethnic nationality to the administration. The chairman, Rivers State Council of Traditional Rulers, Eze Chike Woluwodo, on his part, said the stakeholders of Ikpere ethnic nationality visited to encourage Governor Fubara, who has shown adequate capacity in governing the state, seen and heard by everyone. Eze Wudodo urged Governor Fubara not to be unfocused but remain focused, steer the affairs of the state fearlessly and be sure of the Ikpere support. Senator John Azuta Mbata, also speaking, said Ikpere people had governed the state for 16 years with support given to them by other ethnic groups in the spirit of inclusive politics, explaining that they cannot therefore refuse to support others to peacefully steer the affairs of the state. Azuta assured that all major leaders of Ikpere ethnic nationality were present to pledge their support to Governor Fubara against his detractors and ensure that the administration succeeds. The Rivers State Governor, Sir Siminalayi Fubara, responding, declared that he is not an ungrateful person because he acknowledges and appreciates those who are instrumental to good gestures that had come his way. He stated that it is due to such well-bred lifestyle and personality that he had never contemplated throwing caution to the wind in handling the present political crunch that is bedeviling the state. Governor Fubara made the assertion when he hosted the stakeholders of Ikpere ethnic nationality, including the leadership of Ogbakpa Ikpere Cultural Organization Worldwide, the Supreme Council of Ikpere Traditional Ruler, Ikpere Women Opinion and youth leaders at Government House in Port Harcourt on Monday. The leadership structure of Ikpere stakeholders led other paramount rulers, political leaders, leaders of thought, women and youths on the visit to recommit the people of the ethnic nationality to the success of the administration. A recap of major stories says Orban meets Xi to mediate Russia-Ukraine conflict. Australia names envoy to fight anti-Semitism. Trump expects Biden to remain in presidential race. Zelensky criticizes Modi-Putin meeting amid hospital raid. And on Gaza-Israel war, thousands displaced by new IDF evacuation orders. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.